I would like to call to order the Seminole County School Board Leasing Corporation meeting, March 9th, 2021. Let the record reflect that all 5 school board members are in attendance, and superintendent, clerk, and school board attorney. The first thing on our agenda is the approval of minutes. So board members from November 17th, 2020, have you had an opportunity to read the minutes? Thank you. Are there any objections to the minutes? Hearing no objections, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Superintendent, you have a recommendation?
I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. My recommendation is that the Seminole School Board Leasing Corporation adopt Resolution 2021-01, authorizing the direct placement, Cinderella, refunding of the Certificates of Participation, Series 2012B and 2014A, under which the school board will enter into a purchase and exchange contract that facilitates the advance refunding of the Series 2012B and 2014A certificates through the issuance of taxable Series 2021A and 2021B certificates of participation that are exchangeable at the school board's option for an identical amount of tax-exempt Series 2022A and 2024A, respectively, on or after the 90-day period preceding the initial call date of the original Series 2012B and 2014A certificates.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Second, thank you. Discussion?
Dr. Griffin, do you want to share with the anticipated savings just with the public from this?
Jay, why don't you come on up? Absolutely.
Thank you.
He was waiting for this opportunity.
School board member, Superintendent Jay Glover from PFM. We are the district's financial advisor on debt-related matters. And the question, I think, was what are the anticipated savings on the transaction? So when you close the taxable advance refunding of the COPS, we anticipate about $1.2 million of net present value debt service savings. And then upon the exchange to a tax-exempt rate 90 days before those respective call dates, that debt service savings will be increased to approximately $1.7 million on a net present value debt service basis.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Glover. Any other discussion? Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. With no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the school board meeting of April the 6th, 2021. This evening, the invocation and pledge of allegiance will be led by Member Sanchez.
Good evening. In honor of the 25th annual anniversary of National Poetry Month, this month, it was launched back in 1996 in April. National Poetry Month reminds the public that poets have an integral role to play in our culture and that poetry matters. Over the years, it has become the largest literary celebration, gosh, this thing is in my way, in the world, with tens of millions of readers, students, K-12 teachers, librarians, booksellers, literary events, curators, publishers, families, and of course, poets, marking poetry's important place in our lives. And with that, I'd like to share a poem that I found. The author is unknown, and it's called I Did Nothing Today, something that many of our children have said to us when we come home from a busy day of work and we're having dinner at the dinner table. And I thought it was cute, so I want to share it. When children come home at the end of the day, the question they are asked as they run out to play is, tell me what you did today. The answer they give makes you sigh and with dismay, always saying nothing. I did nothing today. Perhaps nothing means that I read a book, or with a teacher I got to cook. Maybe I painted a picture of blue, or heard a story of a mouse that flew. Maybe I wrote in my journal by myself, or found a book on the library shelf. Maybe I helped a friend today, or went to my favorite area alone to play. Maybe today was the first day my scissors followed a very straight line. Maybe I sang a song right to the end, or worked with a very special brand new friend. When you're young, your heart is as wings, and nothing can mean so many things. So remember, at the end of the day, have open conversations with your children so they can share everything about their beautiful day with you. Thank you, and may we stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, under God, indivisible.
Thank you, Member Sanchez. Let the record reflect that all 5 school board members, superintendent, school board attorney, and school board clerk are in attendance. And board members, the roll call order for tonight is Member Kraus, Vice Chair Pennick, Member Calderon, Member Sanchez, and myself. Ms. Moramis, do you have any acknowledgement forms? No. Thank you. Superintendent, do you have any agenda modifications?
Madam Chair, I do not have any agenda modifications this evening.
I think that's the first.
First time in 9 years.
Thank you. Board members, Member Kraus?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Vice Chair Pennick?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Member Calderon?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Member Sanchez?
No modifications.
Thank you. I have 2 items. Item 6J, invitation to negotiate for electronic surplus recycling and disposal services. And 6L, request for qualifications for CM at risk for Lake Howell High School Reno project. And I'll bring that up again. Is there a motion to approve the agenda outline?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Superintendent, presentations?
We have a few down on the floor.
My mask.
Ready? Good evening, Chairperson Almond, board members, and Dr. Griffin. We are here tonight to recognize Ms. Constance Davis as the Seminole County Public Schools Veteran of the Month. Constance Davis joined the military on January 3rd, 1991, when she was only 28 years old. She would serve in the United States Army for 24 years, retiring on January 3, 2015. Throughout her career in the Army, she was deployed to various locations in and outside of the United States, such as South Korea, Haiti, Hawaii, Texas, North Carolina, and Georgia. She served in communications starting as a private first class, and by the end of her military career, retired as a sergeant first class. In 1997, while stationed in Hawaii, she gave birth to her son, Joshua. Along with Joshua, Ms. Davis would say she has 2 additional children, her beloved pit bull mixes, Texas and Ruby. After Ms. Davis retired from the United States Army, she found her way to Seminole County Public Schools and started driving a school bus. She currently drives students from Wicklow Elementary, Millennium Middle, and Lake Mary High School, and has been with some of her students for many years. Ms. Davis enjoys her family time with her son Joshua and her fur babies, and most of the time you will find Ms. Davis after hours relaxing in her pool or jacuzzi or watching television. But Ms. Davis still has one unique hobby that she uses to relax. She still loves to color and coloring books. Ms. Davis is joined by her son Joshua tonight and some of her closest peers. Thank you, Ms. Davis, for your service to our country as well as your service to the students of Seminole County Public Schools.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, board members. Tonight, we'd like to recognize and honor some very special employees and local heroes who serve our great nation as members of the National Guard. After the unfortunate Capitol riots that we all sadly watched unfold on TV, these individuals were called up to assist in Washington, D.C. in preparation and support of the presidential inauguration. Please come up when I call your name. Noel Ortiz, Network Specialist, Information Services. Not finished yet. And also to be recognized, please come up, Robert Little, Coordinator of Operations, Red Apple Dining. And although he could not join us this evening, I'd also like to recognize Joshua Fogel from South Seminole Academy for his support during the current COVID-19 mission. We thank you all for your outstanding service and dedication to our country.
Okay, focus on achievement.
Heading down. Here comes the team. Dr. Calderon, this is while they're setting up. Last board meeting, you mentioned about us flipping the data and say this is a good example of where we need to put our resources and work and things like that.
Good evening, board members and Dr. Griffin. Thank you for providing us with this opportunity just to update you on a couple of instructional items. This is one presentation tonight based on 2 of your recent requests. Part 1, we're going to answer the question, how are students doing, at least from a quantitative data perspective, taking a look at some of our recent progress monitoring assessments. And then secondly, we're going to talk about the actions that are currently underway to accelerate learning and close gaps that were created by the pandemic. Tonight, I'm joined by the leaders of our instructional teams here at the ESC who have put many of these opportunities into place. And as we talk tonight, all of us are in awe of our colleagues in the schools, our teachers, paraprofessionals, principals, and of course our executive directors who are doing this work with students every single day. So again, we're honored to represent them tonight. We're going to take a past, present, and future approach to the data, and so we're going to begin with a review again of progress monitoring data, and Kelly Thompson, our Director of Research and Accountability, will take this section.
Hi, good evening, Dr. Griffin and board members. The adequate progress data for both elementary and secondary students that you will see in the next several slides is based upon our Florida Department of Education approved reopening and spring education plans. We've been reviewing these data points along with many other data points as we evaluate our student progress throughout the year. As you look at the data, please keep in mind some factors that influence data during this very unusual year. One is we are steadily increasing our number of students who are returning to face-to-face. Some of those students are taking these assessments for the first time in that environment. We have been working with many of our struggling remote learners to get them back into face-to-face instruction, so that also has some impacts on the data. And those students who are participating in assessments remotely also have a little bit different test conditions than our students in a face-to-face environment. So please keep that in mind as we kind of work through the data. There we go. The elementary student adequate progress data is based upon iReady diagnostic assessments, and it's measured in 3 categories. The data that you're seeing reflected on these slides, I need to go back one. Sorry. Excuse me, sorry about that. I want to make sure we got to the reading data first. This data reflected, this is from our January mid-year diagnostic, and as you know, we just closed another diagnostic window on April the 2nd, and so that data is still coming in and being analyzed, but this is where we were mid-year. So what you're seeing here is that students who are making adequate progress, and iReady, those are our students who are on or above grade level. Our students who are in progress with their learning are considered 1 grade level below because we have significant instructional time to get them to grade level performance. And our students who we feel are making inadequate progress are 2 or more grade levels below. The bar charts on this slide are organized by grade level, with K2 students on the left and our grades 3-5 students on the right. The students in green are meeting that adequate progress measure, with our students in orange and yellow in need of some additional supports. Overall, our adequate progress data is consistent across grade levels, with 60% of our students making adequate progress at the mid-year point. Our grades 3 through 5 reading data is aligned to our historical performance on FSA. In 2019, 66% of our students in grades 3 through 5 scored a level 3 or above on the FSA. And the table you see at the bottom reflects the changes that we're seeing in our face-to-face versus our remote test takers. And you see we have a significantly smaller number of students in Seminole Connect that are taking the assessments remotely. There we go. The slides you're seeing here represent our adequate progress data for elementary mathematics. Like reading, elementary math students is measured in the 3 ways that I previously described on the previous slide, and the bar charts are organized similarly with K2 on the left and grades 3 through 5 on the right. Overall, adequate progress data is consistent across grade levels, with between 52 and 54% of students making adequate progress at mid-year. This is slightly lower than what we saw in reading, but this data is reflective of what we're seeing in the national research that is telling us that the impact on COVID is going to be felt most harshly in math, and that we're going to need some significant focus on instructional support in mathematics for support for mathematics for our students. Our grades 3 through 5 performance at this point is lower than our historical performance on FSA. In 2019, 69% of students in grades 3 through 5 scored level 3 or above in FSA math. But again, keeping in mind this is mid-year data, and there is substantial instructional time that is taking place between this and testing. We're going to move now into data for our secondary students. The secondary student data is based upon the Common 9 Weeks assessments in mathematics and English language arts, and the test window was at the end of quarter 3. So this data was collected between March 1st and March the 12th. Adequate progress for secondary students is determined by students who are in progress towards proficiency on our assessments and also who are tracking to proficiency. Inadequate progress is measured by students who are not tracking to proficiency. And again, keep in mind those significant data factors, the transition to face-to-face, struggling remote learners, and the change in test conditions for those testing remotely. So our first slide reflects English language arts performance for secondary students. Grades 6 through 8 are on the left, and grades 9 and 10 are on the right. Students in green are meeting adequate progress, with students in orange showing need for additional support. Overall, our adequate progress in secondary ELA is between 80 and 82% of our students reflecting that they're meeting this mark. Our grades 6 through 8 and grades 9, 10 reading data, this is higher than our historical performance on FSA. In 2019, 60% of our students in grades 6 through 8 scored a level 3 or above, and on FSA ELA, and 61% of our students in grades 9 and 10 scored proficient or higher. Part of these differences can be attributed to changes in the passages that we utilized for the two different forms of the C9A, and also the fact that FSA includes the writing component and editing components that are not present in our C9A data. So it's those assessments are a little bit different. And again, the table at the bottom shows you how many students took the test remotely versus face-to-face, and that we're steadily decreasing those Seminole Connect students participating remotely. Our last slide is our secondary mathematics, which reflects 6 through 8 math, Algebra 1, and geometry. So our bar charts are with 6 through 8 math on the left, algebra in the middle, and geometry on the right. Overall adequate progress across 6 through 8 math and Algebra 1 is fairly consistent, with 59% to 60% of students demonstrating adequate progress as of quarter 3. Geometry adequate progress, however, that performance is lower, with 52% of our students tracking or in progress at the end of the quarter. 6 through 8 math and Algebra 1 data is consistent with historical performance on FSA. In 2019, 58% of students in grades 6 through 8 scored level 3 or above, and 61% of our Algebra 1 students earned a level 3 or above on the Algebra 1 end of course exam. The geometry adequate performance data is lower than our historical performance on the geometry EOC. In 2019, 64% of students scored a level 3 or above on that EOC. So this is our look at where we were at that mid-year. And so at this time, I'll turn it back over to Dr. Weissong to introduce the next portion of the presentation.
Thank you. Board members and Dr. Griffin, again, we have work to do. We're excited about some of the results we're seeing, but we're also beginning to see the very specific areas where we need to offer remediation and supplemental opportunities. And so we're going to share some of that work that's already underway, and we know that that will continue into the summer and next school year as well. And as you're aware, our Department of Teaching and Learning has really taken a leading role over the last 12 months in getting us through first remote learning, and then helping us to build what we need to make Seminole Connect happen. And we've really had a smooth transition from Dr. Gard Harold's leadership to Mr. Jensen, and I've come to learn that part of that stability is the rest of our awesome teaching and learning team and the work that they do. And so I'm honored to give Dr. Michelle Pisani, our coordinator for elementary curriculum, and Allie Hilliard, our coordinator for secondary curriculum, an opportunity to update you on some of the initiatives that are already in place to get these gaps closed.
Thank you. And likewise, I'd like to start out by acknowledging the work of the schools, like Dr. Weissong said, of just being really creative with their scheduling this year, finding those extra minutes within the school day, before school, after school, weekends, during breaks, online resources to really try to capture those extra moments of instruction with students. In some ways, students, the online provides us an ability to meet with them if their families couldn't bring them back to school for some of the things. So with that, and because we have such increased numbers of teachers providing these instructions, we have developed boost camp materials, and those are materials specifically for grades 3 through 5 and ELA and math. And they are meant to connect those standards that we're noticing as we look at the data that students are continuing to have difficulty with. And they were developed by some of our most highly engaging teachers who recorded themselves. So they're the recordings of teachers going through a lesson. And so that way students kind of hear another voice or maybe another way of having these concepts explained to them. So they're meant to be shared with students at their schools with teachers who then, there are places within the lesson where there's time for the teacher to stop that recording and then allow the students to interact with the content that they've been shown. So in this case, it might be doing some writing or working on a fractions word problem. And that then provides time for the teacher that's there with them to give them that feedback and make those corrections. Some of the schools that have worked with them and let us know that they've been helpful in having a structure for those boost camps are Idlewild is definitely one school that's let us know that they've been helpful for their teachers. There we go. So another area that I'd like to highlight is how we've used professional development to help support district data trends. And this year, something that we've done differently is we've had Wednesday online offerings to teachers. So teachers across the district can join in, and at elementary, we provide those at 2:30. And some of them are led by teachers themselves, like we've highlighted Melissa Vaccaro there from Evans as she leads a session on ELA, and others are led by some of our teachers' assignment. As a structure, that having that common time allows the teachers to come on and interact live in time with the presenters, but then we've also recorded them in addition to that, so that if you're not available during that time or your school already has something else planned, that those resources are still available to teachers. At the end of these sessions, the teacher on assignment that's hosting, so to speak, will go ahead and email whatever teachers were taking part all the resources, and likewise with the recordings, if they watch the recording, there's the contact information, so then the teacher on assignment, they can email the teacher on assignment and receive those materials as well. And this, like I said, has been used to kind of help supplement what schools are already doing. And Wekiva and Winter Springs are a couple of those schools that have had very regular attendance. And then finally for elementary, another thing that I wanted to highlight this evening is, as a way we're supporting teachers in the middle of units with PD that's also embedded within their instructional plan. And we call those snapshots. And they're these little 10 to 15 minute recordings that are, like I said, embedded within the instructional plan that are meant for professional learning communities to review after students have gone ahead and they've taken a mid-unit formative, so that teachers can respond to how students are interacting with the material and correct some misconceptions that they might have before you get to that end of the unit assessment. So they have stopping points in the recording so that the teachers can gather together and after listening to a bit of it, compare it to the data that they're seeing with their students and make plans for how they can help remediate any of those misunderstandings. So some examples here, just, questions that teachers might ask to help students better understand what's meant by a central idea, if that's something that's confusing to them in ELA, or it might even be some tasks that, like for the example that if students are having similar issues in math, that, this might be an opportunity to pull a small group and work with the students and then respond to them and help redirect any misconceptions that they have. So as far as the structure, Wilson and Goldsboro and their coaches have let us know that this has been a helpful structure for them in their PLCs this year. And with that, I will try, there we go, to hand it over to Ms. Hilliard to tell you a little bit about secondary.
Thank you. Recognizing the gaps that are present and identifying how to provide support to our students both in school and after school is a priority. The Pre-Algebra Support course was designed to provide individualized support to students in the prerequisite knowledge necessary for success in pre-algebra. This support is utilized within the actual course, thus providing intervention time within the school day. Alexander Rozga from Millennium Middle School is our project manager and has spearheaded our professional development efforts, student incentive program, and data analysis. The Algebra Workshop course also allows during the school day intervention for our students who are currently enrolled in Algebra 1 at the middle school level. This course provides students who have been accelerated from 7th grade standard to Algebra 1 the prerequisite knowledge that may have been missed with this course transition. Many of our schools, including Jackson Heights Middle, encourage a strong articulation between our Algebra 1 teacher and our workshop teachers to provide additional support for each student. Finally, many of our schools have created time within the school day to provide interventions, such as South Seminole Academy's Elevate period. This allows teachers to use formative assessment as well as C9A data to place students twice a week in strategic and specific support periods based on the areas of greatest need. After-school support, similarly, is also necessary for many of our students and families. These opportunities include school-based tutorial programs, which many of our schools offer. For example, Lake Howell High School provides tutoring for students in the areas of ELA, algebra, and biology in both the face-to-face and WebEx modalities. At the district level, we are pleased to offer our Brain Boost program this year. Brain Boost is an after-school standards-based support program for secondary math and ELA students. Brain Boost lessons can be accessed either live on Tuesday and Thursday evenings or on demand through the Brain Boost tile in the student portal. Each week, a new standard in math and ELA is featured. More than 720 lessons have been accessed either live or on demand since the start of Brain Boost. Many of our schools feature incentive programs for Brain Boost attendance, including Teague Middle and Hagerty High Schools. Teague students have accessed more than 130 lessons, and Hagerty's have accessed more than 100 lessons in Brain Boost. Finally, providing support to our teachers, both in effectively identifying the gaps that may be present for their students and in providing grade-level instruction, is critical. Our secondary math and ELA frameworks for this school year included formatives for teachers to administer periodically throughout the quarter to gauge student progress toward understanding of the standards. This allowed teachers the opportunity to provide additional instruction and/or enrichment prior to the Common 9 Weeks assessments. Through targeted professional development aimed at grade-level standards-based instruction, we have provided teachers support in utilizing data to drive informed instructional decisions for all students. These sessions, in partnership with Assessment and Accountability, have occurred live on Wednesday afternoons, on demand for whole groups, in PLCs for small groups, and at the individual teacher level as well. Finally, recognizing a need as evidenced in the data, we have also provided our algebra and geometry teachers with professional development in the use of varied vocabulary strategies, as this is a skill necessary for success in these courses.
Thank you both for those updates and for all the great work happening. And board members, I think what makes me most excited about this work is that our teachers are generating this content and these plans and these materials online. We're not heavily relying on ed tech vendors or third-party curriculum writers. Our teachers are identifying these gaps, and they're doing the work to provide the best experience that they can for our students. So we know that makes us both better practitioners and also makes this work sustainable for the long term. So I think that's one of the exciting developments here. Mr. Jensen, our Director of Teaching and Learning, is going to share some thoughts on potentially where we are headed. And again, all of this depends on where our students finish up the year and what trends we see in final rounds of assessments, as well as qualitative feedback from our teachers and parents. So, Mr. Jensen.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Weissong. As Dr. Weissong said, this is probably the most fluid part of the presentation because obviously we're going to be incredibly responsive to the needs of our students and our teachers going forward. And as additional opportunities come up, either via funding or new practices or initiatives that we can leverage to address our learning gaps, we're going to be ferocious in using those to make sure that our students and teachers have access to all the resources they need to be successful going forward. And it's really a continuation of the work that we've already started that Dr. Pisani and Ms. Hilliard shared with you, and that I've had the privilege of seeing in our classrooms as I've started my time as the Director of Teaching and Learning and getting to visit so many schools and seeing what our teachers are doing to differentiate instruction and then novel approaches to one-on-one and small group tutoring to really get at these individual student needs based on the data that we're seeing and to really help our students overcome the challenges that COVID has presented us. So the first set of supports we have are the supports for teachers going forward. And one of the big ones that I'm very excited about is our summer PLC conference. This is going to be a virtual conference, and it's happening the week of June 14th. We're going to have more than 400 teachers and school administrators participating in school teams. And as you know, PLCs are really a structure for teams of teachers and instructional staff at schools to look at data and then use that data to make really powerful instructional decisions to address student needs. And so by having a collective reset around this topic and really digging into it as a Seminole County family, I think we're going to emerge from this conference and take these best practices back to our school and use it as a lever to make those data-informed decisions that our students are going to need going forward. We also have the Summer Teaching and Learning Conference happening in the middle of July. And like every summer, we're going to be offering both in-person and virtual sessions for our teachers. And we're really going to target professional development based on the instructional needs that we have. And it's not just going to be a district-based decision about what that professional development looks like. We're also going to be soliciting our teachers' input on what sessions they need. And we're going to be leveraging our teachers' collective expertise to offer those sessions. So that'll be a really, I think, powerful conference and opportunity to hit some best research-based practices that'll help drive instruction in 21-22. And then finally, as we have opportunities going forward, which Dr. Weissong will share here in a minute, we're going to be using those to provide our teachers with the best research-based materials possible to drive instruction in the classroom. And so one great example of that is starting next year, all of our teachers will have, in first and second grade, access to a leveled literacy intervention curriculum for our Tier 3 reading students. So all of those students will be reading this very powerful research-based intervention that will help remediate some of those foundational skills gaps we have in first and second grade. We're going to be pairing that with a really robust PD component in the fall, as we will with all of these types of initiatives that we roll out. And then regarding our support for students, we have summer academic support, which will be, and Dr. Weissong, I don't know if you can, oh, I have it. I apologize. So we have obviously our summer academic support, which will kind of carry on what we've started doing here in the spring, but we're also going to be expanding student access to those programs. So looking at groups of students maybe not traditionally served by our summer programming and inviting those students and families to participate in it, as well as providing additional tools and resources like expanding access to Achieve reading intervention curriculum for summer transition students, and expanding access to homegrown curriculum and tools for our teachers and students over the summer as well, coupled with a robust training component, obviously. We'll also have in-school supplemental instruction, and I really anticipate that looking like an even bigger, bolder version of what we're starting to see in schools this year. There's a significant body of research showing that small group tutoring, either in person or virtual, has an enormous impact on addressing some of these learning gaps, and we're starting to see those initiatives take off in our schools, and I know that we're going to be really working to find some best practices around that, so we're seeing some really high quality, small group, differentiated, individualized, and tutoring happening in our schools during the school day for students who need it in that school time. And we'll also see that coupled with obviously progress monitoring to make sure that the interventions that we're giving students are going to be paying off and resulting in the learning gains that we're hoping to see. And finally, we'll have similar versions of after-school support for students as well. I have been awestruck by how many of our teachers are in this year willing to put in extra hours beyond the school day to help their students and provide tutoring and instruction well beyond their normal school hours. And I'm hoping that we can use some of our resources to increase that support going forward and provide them with additional tools and supports they need to lighten the burden of it and to increase the efficacy of it. So between these supports for students and the previous supports for teachers, we're really excited about the possibilities to address some of these learning gaps that, particularly in mathematics, that we see.
Thank you, Mr. Jensen. It goes without saying that all of these efforts that are underway are certainly resource intensive, and so we want to let you know how we're addressing those resource needs. Obviously, again, as Mr. Jensen said, teachers are putting in an enormous amount of time beyond the normal day, and we want to be sure that we have the funding to support that additional work, and also, when needed, that we can acquire additional materials that are very high quality in nature and long lasting. These next set of slides were prepared by Jamie Minetto, our Director of Federal Projects. She regrets that she couldn't be here this evening, but this is her summary, and I will do my best to get the fund sources correct. But again, this is just to give you an idea of how we are funding some of this work. As you're aware, much has been made of the CARES Act, and this is an acronym-loaded slide. CARES, Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. That was passed in March of 2020. There are two elements of CARES that benefited public schools. The first is called ESSER, or the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, and then that's a formula grant to the states. And then GEAR is the Governor's Emergency Education Relief Fund, and that gives the governor in each state some discretionary funds to address specific needs in that state. There are 6 projects listed on this slide. Each of these is a grant that SCPS received to address a different area of need. And again, really our focus has been school-directed academic intervention. Each principal knows their faculty and their students informed by the data that we've shared, and then they have some flexibility within the parameters of the grant to design the scope and time of the program that they think best meets the needs of their community. Additionally, there were 3 grants provided by the Florida Office of Early Learning specifically to address VPK and kindergarten initiatives. And of course, the theory of action here is that if we can put intensive resources into correcting any gaps in early learning, we'll get through this much faster and shorten the duration of the educational impacts of the pandemic. So again, there's been some additional resources at the VPK level. And then currently, and thinking about, again, those future efforts, we will rely heavily on two funding sources. The first of these is the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act, or CRRSA. That's more commonly being referred to as ESSER II, the second education relief funding. You have an action item this evening to approve our submission of a grant to bring that funding into the district, and then we'll begin using that for any of the approved purposes. And then there's additional funding coming through the American Rescue Plan Act, or ESSER III. That funding has been passed and been signed into law. We are awaiting guidance from the Florida Department of Education as to the parameters for use of those funds, and then once that comes out, we'll be able to apply. We do know, notably in the federal law, that 20% of those funds must be used to address learning loss. Our question will simply be how learning loss is defined and then how we can use the funding. For example, will we be able to do school day efforts, or will we only be able to use that money for supplemental instruction? That's a very important distinction that will impact our planning and the scope of work. So that's the known unknown at this point is what will the rules be in ESSER III. And so as we wrap up tonight, I know we'll have opportunities to talk with you at a work session later this month about lessons learned from Seminole Virtual and Seminole Connect and how we're going to apply that moving forward. And then as we get into June, we'll have another of these presentations on how we're also going to pivot to the new BEST standards, because the timeline for that implementation and eventually for a new assessment has not changed. And so we're going to be doing this accelerating learning efforts while we're also pivoting to new standards and new instructional materials. And we've got lots of plans coming together there. But ultimately, our goal is to use this data, and that's why these assessments are so important. Use the data to identify the gaps. This will be very individualized work. We've got the right people, and if we have the right data, I'm convinced we can get these gaps closed and keep moving forward as a district. Thank you for the time this evening.
Thank you, board members. Ms. Sanchez?
Thank you so much. Can you relay that to the governor and everybody up there so they understand that we really don't just take the FSA, let's use it for the data and go from there. So everybody that's listening, please write to your legislators, please. Thank you. Thank you guys so much for everything.
Member Calderon?
Few things. I was a little bit surprised with the numbers from the mid-year assessments, walking through the schools, the principals are trying to work with the families, let's say, that are not engaged in Seminole Connect, and I thought the delta would be a lot larger. So I was pleased to see that the Seminole Connect students were doing better than we thought they would. Is there a direct correlation, though, from that mid-year assessment to the results on FSA? Because that's what you were comparing it to, Kelly, versus the mid-year assessment of last year.
We're hoping the second diagnostic, which is the mid-year, typically gives us our best look at student performance, even with unfinished learning. So we feel fairly confident from what we saw. The unknown is the impact of the kids that are in remote, that took it remotely. Their testing environment is different than the face-to-face students. So teachers are using multiple data points to try to evaluate those remote students' performance to make sure they're on track for learning. So we just finished that the most recent iReady diagnostic, so our team will begin taking that data and kind of taking a look at how it's looking and what growth we've seen from the second one to the mid-year to the one that we just finished. So.
And I wanted to thank you all for putting all of this onto video that can be accessed at any time. I think that is such a powerful positive that's come out of this whole COVID situation, because as we know, some people learn better at 4 in the morning, some are better at 10 at night, and we all have different family and work obligations, and to have that quality instruction to be able to be accessed at when it's a good time, I think we're going to impact not only more student learning, but also more professional development for our team members that we know are already going above and beyond with the hours that they work each year. So my hope is this summer we can get the word out, because even if somebody has not been invited, let's say, to summer school because there's learning gaps, I think even to accelerate students or to just keep their mind going through the summer, to have that in their toolbox at their home, maybe even if they're going on vacation and on a long car ride. I mean, it's something that keeps this academic achievement forefront, and any kind of partnerships we can make with the families now more than ever so they don't feel isolated, I think is very, very important. And my last question, if I could, Madam Chair, on the pre-K and kindergarten numbers and the ESSER funding and trying to help those younger children, do we have any of our numbers yet as far as registration for kindergarten this year? I know the numbers were way down, and we were very concerned with what it might look like this year with so many students having that gap year so early in their academic career.
I don't have the exact numbers with me. I can get them to you, but our K and 1 registration is up compared to this year.
Because I just didn't know if maybe some of those new pre-K registrants or new K registrants that don't know about the learning tiles and everything that we do within the school district, if we do have any of that supplemental additional academic help that we could afford those families that have never been engaged with us before, I hope we can find a way to engage them. And that's my final comment. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Member Krause.
Thank you. First, I would just like to thank you. I know this was very time-consuming. I'm very grateful that you provided us all this data. A couple of things I wanted to respond to. The teachers that spoke, I think it was the performing arts and art teachers. I don't want to forget them in this whole picture as well. And this is exactly the modality that they asked for. What are best practices? How can we do this differently in this environment and until we're all clear to go? So I'm grateful that you brought the teachers teaching teachers modality to this, and the accessibility online is phenomenal. Secondly, if math is our default, or our downfall, there was a program at Winter Springs High School in their algebra program where they literally had 4 instructors in one class. Could we copycat that modality for the summer and offer, you want to up your algebra? Here's an opportunity. Are you familiar with that? I'm sure you are, Dr. Weissong, with there were students that were not strong in this one area, so they work with a small group.
That particular effort is a great example of innovation at a school level, and then you try that out and you say, okay, is it replicable, is it scalable? And there are a lot of factors. Some of it is the right physical space, some of it is the right combination of faculty. We've certainly had conversations about different things we can do this summer, including the fact that for years as a board you've supported year-round virtual school, and so unlike a lot of other districts, we're not having to figure out how to do that because we've been doing it here for years. So I think there are a number of options. I know there's an information item in the book tonight about summer learning at the elementary level and some different options that Dr. Cummings and Dr. Dellinger are running, but we can certainly continue to look at a lot of this work over the next 12 months is going to be iterating in response to changing needs and ideas. And again, we'll take as many of those best practices from schools and share them. And again, I think at our work session later this month, we're going to have that opportunity to hear about some neat things that have been tried at individual schools that are then picked up by principals, and they make it work on their campuses as well. So we'll take a look at that.
Thank you. I appreciate the presentation very much. Great information. Kelly, a question for you. When I look at Seminole Connect versus face-to-face, can you easily identify the face-to-face classrooms that were 100% pure face-to-face, see what their proficiency levels are versus the ones that were doing Connect and face-to-face?
We can attempt that. We, at the beginning of the year.
Without it being labor intensive,
Well,
because it really is very close.
Right now, everything we're doing is based upon student scheduling in Skyward because it's all course code connected. We can work with Mr. Evelyn and his team to see if there's an easy way for us to do that. At this point in time, because so many students have come back, the modalities have changed throughout the year. So where we started during quarter one, we had some pure connect classrooms and pure face-to-face, but as we had more and more students transitioning back, we went to more blended classrooms.
Okay.
And I know it's secondary, it's very difficult to find classrooms that are pure connect and pure face-to-face. I think our schools have done just an outstanding job of working with families of connect learners who are struggling. And if it was feasible and safe for those students to return to face-to-face, they have reached out and they have done that, and partnering with families about trying to get those students back to a more traditional model with a little bit more structure to it. So we're kind of seeing all of those things influence, but certainly we can work with Mr. Everland and his team to see if there's a way to look at currently what those classrooms look like, or at least third quarter, what they look like, because they change all the time. Students can move back to face-to-face at the request of the parent at any point. So, but we can take a look at that.
Thank you. Were you surprised by the Seminole Connect results?
A little bit, yes. I think we have to look at, it's interesting to look at the content of the test, and certainly math, we see a bigger difference sometimes between the face-to-face and the Connect students, and that's because we have, I think there's some challenges with remote testing mathematics. There's a lot of opportunities for assistance that some of our students may be taking advantage of during that time that they don't get the advantage of in a face-to-face environment. But for a lot of our students who've remained in Connect, those are strong students who are getting good support at home, and they're achieving in that model because we've been working with those families whose students were struggling. So I think the profile of the learner in Connect currently is a little different than what the profile of the learner was in quarter one.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The board members, if you have anything for discussion, Member Kraus?
Yes, Madam Chair, this is what I was going to ask you before the meeting. Is this when we present the visits and activities, or is this when we address open?
You can address what you want to there, and then your committee's on the bottom.
At the end? Okay. We talked at our last meeting about some of the issues that we had, and I hate to bring up a smelly fish, but the process that we used with the hiring process for the superintendent, I would like to form a work session or some avenue so that we can learn from this experience and have best practices for any future boards. I hope it doesn't happen for a long time, but that's just something I'd like to put on your radar, if I could. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Pennock?
I don't have any.
Thank you. Member Calderon?
I just wanted to send out my kudos to all of our AP art teachers. The phenomenal art show they did at Seminole State this year in that new venue, I think, was a better venue. And actually, the students set up the art show this year, so I had to give kudos to all those students as well. And I wanted to thank, I saw many here earlier, but the Virtual District Parent Academy I thought was very well run. It seemed to have more attendees than we had when we do it face-to-face, and I guess I would put it under the same headline of what we said here earlier, lessons learned. This is a positive thing to come out of the COVID environment, that we can deliver this type of instruction to our families a lot easier mobily. Just wanted to give you an update on Seminole State College, that we've made the decision to phase out the adult high school. So I know we used to send students there, but so for those that are almost done, we'll still offer the adult high school for the remainder of the next year, but then they'll just be working with future students on earning their GED. So hopefully somewhere else in the community, maybe one of our charter schools can pick that up. And Dr. Griffin, I know we've had comments in the past and we'll have them in the future, but if we could at some point in time have a masking update within the schools. I know you've had opportunities to meet with the county and medical professionals, and I just want to solidify that we're all communicating together so we can make the best decisions moving forward with that.
Are you okay if I speak now about it? Okay. Chair Almond, Amy Elwood, and I attended our medical discussion group. Present, it was a WebEx. Present at that was Nemours, Advent, and Orlando Health, virologists and pediatricians who we discuss with each month.
And cardiologists.
And cardiologists because of the EKG issue that we spoke about. And the recommendations that all the doctors agreed upon on the call is that mask use definitely needs to continue due to the variants being stronger and different. For us to do whatever we can do to encourage people to get vaccinated, and kudos to the board for providing a staff opportunity and now an upcoming student one as soon as we have a date for that. But to continue to assess mask use on a monthly basis, because as more people get vaccinated, the hope is we're not going to need these masks. And Chair Almond suggested that maybe in June, we have some of our medical experts have a little panel, not only talk about masks, but all of our safety and health protocols moving into 21, 22, kind of like our reopening task force, but focused really just on the health piece of it, because that's what is changing really week to week as more people get vaccinated.
And I guess that's kind of the updated information that we'd like to have so we can revisit our policy if need be that, you know, what are those end game percentages? You know, I've heard the terminology pandemic and I've also heard the terminology endemic, right? So if you're looking at the numbers coming down, what is that critical number that we can say we can end? I don't know if Seminole County Department of Health has made that determination yet, or I guess we live under the rule of the county Board of County Commissioners because they have the masking now. So just to have those kind of dialogues, I just want to make sure we have a seat at the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Sanchez?
I just wanted to see if we could have some sort of meeting shortly when maybe another work session on ESE services and making sure that we're all on the same page, understanding the different services and getting, committee together, parents, teachers, families, and students to get their input to see what we can do to help a smooth transition for our ESE students and teachers as well as families. Thank you.
Thank you. So 2 items I brought up earlier. Item 6J, an invitation to negotiate for electronic surplus recycling and disposal services. Ms. Sanchez, it's been requested that you serve on that. You served on the initial committee. Okay. Thank you. And 6L, RFQ for CM at risk for Lake Howell High School reno project. Ms. Kraus. Great, thank you. Tomorrow, the Casbury Chamber is having a nonprofit panel during their lunch meeting, and then in the evening, we're having a virtual Zoom scholarship event for students from Winter Springs High School, Lyman, and Lake Howell, and 7 students will each receive a scholarship. So happy about that. And I participated at South Seminole Academy in the Living on Your Own event, and that was really, really a powerful event for those students. Very eye-opening. They learned about every facet of budgeting and what you have to pay for in life, whether you want to or not. You have to pay for your groceries, your rent, things like that. So kudos to the school for putting that on. And that's what I have. Public comment is next. Vice Chair, please read the statement.
The public input segment of this meeting is provided for the purpose of permitting persons to present specific matters to the board for its consideration and action or referral to the superintendent and his staff. The public input segment of this meeting is not open to presentation of campaign issues by political candidates, matters involving student disciplinary action, pending employee disciplinary matters, or pending litigation. Each individual member of the public is entitled to 3 minutes. Designated group representative may have up to 6 minutes.
Thank you. And then, Ms. Marimas, I know you have some to read after this. So I have 2 public comment forms. Kelly Shilson, please, and then Michelle Burrows. Come up to the podium. Thank you. Okay. Okay, thank you.
So my name is Michelle Burrows. You guys met me at the last meeting. Plain and simple, I'm done with the masks as a parent. Requiring a student to wear a mask or stay home is complete discrimination against their right to an equal opportunity for access to the public school system and a quality education. Seminole County is so worried about their teachers possibly not wanting to teach when the mandate is lifted. If they are indeed worried about the virus, they can get the vaccine if they choose. They can wear a mask if they choose. They can social distance in their classroom if they choose. Or maybe find a different platform to teach. Maybe you wouldn't be so short on substitutes or teachers if masks were an option. I used to be a substitute. I refuse to be held by a mask. I won't do it. Masking teachers and students prevents proper socialization and can create a hostile environment. Children need verbal cues at the same time as their visual cues. If not, they might as well be speaking through a text message and nothing but misunderstanding and aggravation. This can then lead to misunderstanding, bullying, depression, and lack of learning. It has happened to my child, most recently today. These masks are not about health, they're about compliance. They're about control and power trips for the people put in position to simply teach our children. There are strong opinions on both sides of this argument, and that means there should be a choice. These parents and children, as well as some teachers, are not against masks. We are simply standing for the choice. Our children should be able to learn freely. Parents should be the only ones making decisions about the health of our children, period. We do not mask outside of the school for any reason, and I will not do so. It is time for you to acknowledge us parents and get rid of this nonsense mandate and allow for our personal choice. Have you also seen how quickly, I just want to touch on this, how quickly a student, a child's appearance can be changed wearing a mask? Have you seen that photo going around? It happens in this area. All right, child abduction is a serious issue. You can't tell if somebody's being abducted when their hair's wrapped up in a cap and they have a mask across their duct tape face. There are so many things wrong with this mask mandate. It is absolutely ridiculous. There was a study done from May to October of last year. It had less than a 1% change in whether we contracted the virus or not. My children have suffered acne, bacterial infections, dental infections. They've been to the doctor more this year than combined in the last 4 years in this district, simply because these masks, at the end of the day, they are filthy, and they have been up against their faces all day. It is pure child abuse.
Thank you. Ms. Marimas.
Madam Chair, I have 7 public comments. The first public comment comes from Becky Ning of Longwood. Board members and superintendent, I ask that you grant mask choice to our students and teachers. I recently saw a Facebook post that showed Miss Beeman maskless and near others at an SCPS baseball game. Until I saw this, I thought I was disappointed as I could possibly be with SCPS leadership. Yet you have once again exceeded my expectations. And yes, I did read the list of excuses that were added to the post about how the event wasn't on school property. Other people approached her, which she had no control of, and everyone gave their permission to be in the photos. So as we all anticipated would be the case, there is plenty of legal speak on hand to defend the distasteful behavior of our school district leadership that operates under the motto of rules for thee but not for me. Along with the perks of any leadership role comes the burden of remaining above approach and acting in solidarity with your stakeholders. Without shouldering the associated burden, you might have the job of leading but You don't have this constituent respect because you have not earned it. If you feel so strongly that masks address a public health concern, then set an example for those who are supposed to be leading and show respect for the health of those around you by wearing yours. If you aren't feeling so strongly about it anymore and would rather have a choice about wearing a mask, then let's get busy revising the mask mandate our kids are subject to. Let families make the choices for their kids, just like Ms. Beeman made the choice for herself. It appears the mask policy is no longer associated with public health concerns anyway. In reading through the list of reasons why it was okay for Ms. Beeman to be maskless at an SCPS baseball game, I found not a single reason that was even tangentially related to any health consideration. If we are still discussing the policy primarily in place due to a public health consideration, this would have been the focus of the counterpoints made to defend her behavior. On the other hand, I was delighted by the post since, by your own definition, I will not have to wear a mask to my child's high school graduation in May. It will not be on school property. It will not be inside an SCPS event, just as the Seminole High School game was not. And I can just stick with the people who have given permission for me to be near me. If others approach me, I can't control that, but it seems that it's still okay. In all seriousness, it is apparent that Seminole County parents who oppose the mask policy and the unethical behavior of the district leadership team are not welcome here. If we want personal choice and expect ethical behavior from our leaders, then leaving SCPS is always an option. Parents, we can and should shift our focus from petitioning the board to contacting our legislators to request school choice legislation to allow us to move our families and our tax dollars to private schools where our children can return to normal school experience with field trips, no masks, on a regular school day full of activities in a healthy developmental environment. Best, Becky Ng. The next comment comes from Robert Burrows of Oviedo. We, the parents of Seminole County School children, kindly request a change to the mask policy. It should be up to the child or parent, if too young to make the educated decision. The mask policy adversely alters the children's ability to learn at the highest level possible. Some of these include, but are not limited to, the following: affected eyesight. Wearing a face mask makes the exhaled air go into the eyes, wrote Antonio Lazzarino, medical doctor and epidemiologist of the University of College London, in a letter to the journal BMJ about the side effects of face mask. This generates an uncomfortable feeling and an impulse to touch your eyes. If the hands are contaminated, you are infecting yourself. They can also fog reading glasses, causing a child to just decide not to wear their glasses due to the issue and making their eyes strain or cause them to have headaches. Spread disease if not washed. Skin irritation, increased in acne cases for our vulnerable middle school and high school kids where bullying already takes place due to clothing, weight, or skin conditions. Wearing a face mask may give a false sense of security and make people adopt a reduction in compliance with other infectious control measures, including social distancing and hand washing. Please consider ending the mask mandate effective immediately. Thank you, Robert Burrows. The next comment comes from Tanya Georgiev. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Dear Seminole County School Board, I have sent multiple emails requesting the contact information of the people who made and continue to make the decision to keep kids masked. Unfortunately, I was only given the list of names without contact info. Also, I would like for everyone to hear that the last time this medical advisory board met was in July of 2020. This is almost a year ago. Since then, many things have changed, including vaccine availability to anyone who feels at risk. After watching multiple of your meetings and seeing that the people request the choice ignored, I would like to know with who and how can we address our concerns about our kids' physical and psychological well-being. I request a formal response to this, please. I have sent you many articles that show, per CDC, mask prevented less than 2% of the infection. Masks hurt children physically and psychologically. There are zero research on effects of prolonged mask wearing. The infections passed from a child to an adult are rare. Kids do not keep their masks clean the way adults can. They bite it, suck on it, drop it, put it on their desk, and then on their mouth. This information has been shared with everyone on the board by email. With this in mind, I assume that you are aware of all that, but refuse to act on it. Hence, you take our children's medical well-being in your hands, correct? Additionally, please stop sending emails about free mental health. It is insulting that you have forced kids to be in masks for 68 hours a day and then offer them free mental help. And one more thing, the kids are taking FSA exams in masks. While you sit at your work desk with your mask down, how can you think clearly when half your face is covered and your oxygen is restricted? Thank you, Tanya Georgiev. The next comment comes from Jessica Tillman of Longwood. My name is Jessica Tillman. I'm the parent of 4 and a former employee. You continue to ignore me, many other parents, and our information presented to you. I have yet to receive a response at all from some of you, and only a copy-paste response from some with no real response or answers. We continue to ask what guidelines must be met to lift the mandate. You do not listen to parents. You do not listen to research articles after research articles about the dangers, limited protection, and false sense of security masks bring. So let's look at it from another angle. Let's talk about what we can do that is proven to help fight pathogens, a healthy immune system. Malnutrition compromises both immune system tissue and immune response. From day to day, the immune system requires adequate amounts of protein, fat, carbohydrates, vitamins, minerals, and water to maintain the tissue and mount a response. Out of all the systems in your body, your immune system is the most sensitive to nutrition. The nutrients known to affect your immune system are fatty acids, folate, iron, protein, selenium, vitamin A, B6, C, D, E, and zinc. So having a balanced nutrition and nutrient diet, dense diet can impact your immune health. 50% of the U.S. population overall is deficient in vitamin D. 80% of COVID deaths are deficient in vitamin D. Zinc is a catalyst for more than 100 enzymes and processes in your body, and along with vitamin C, has been used for decades to fight acute respiratory infections, which is what COVID is. Cells of the immune system respond to vitamin D. It is considered a hormone and is created by sun exposure and found in small amounts in the food we eat. Direct sunlight on a sunny day for 5 to 10 minutes, 2 to 3 times a week, with your hands, face, and arms exposed should be enough to produce the recommended amounts of vitamin D. It is important to know that long-term vitamin D deficiency can cause rickets in children and increase the risk of chronic disease and osteoporosis in adults. Knowing 50% of the population is deficient in vitamin D, regular daily supplementation of vitamin D can be beneficial. Vitamin D3 supplementation is an affordable way to ensure you are receiving the recommended levels. Now let's talk about zinc. Zinc is an essential trace mineral that has many roles, including assisting with your body's immune function. It can also has antioxidant properties. Supplementing zinc 23 milligrams per day when sick with an ARI can help to shorten the length of time a person is ill. Vitamin C is a water-soluble vitamin that is able to function as an antioxidant. Smokers are at risk for vitamin C deficiencies and should consume more than non-smokers. Vitamin C supplementation when fighting common cold and ARI has shown to reduce the severity of both when taking at least 20 milligrams per day. Daily vitamin D supplementation and vitamin C and zinc supplementation when sick can be beneficial to building and supporting a strong immune system. We cannot always avoid getting sick, but we can do things through diet to help ourselves through it. If this truly was about the health and safety of our children and staff, why haven't we encouraged healthy eating, exercise, and sleep habits instead of unnecessarily scaring everyone into submission? Masks suppress your natural immune system. Remove the mask mandate and allow families medical freedom. Mandate vegetables if you care so much about our health. The next comment comes from Catherine Maluda. I am a parent of 2 Seminole County students. One of my children is beginning as a kindergartner in 2021 unless I decide to send him to a private school due to the ludicrous events taking place in Seminole County. I will not be sending him to Seminole County Public Schools if the mask mandate does not change. He has been to pre-K this whole time with no mask, and he will not start wearing one now. Between the mask mandate, superintendent selection, and events at Croom's graduation that has not yet been changed on Seminole County Schools' website to incorporate one graduation for all students, this county should be ashamed of itself. There has never been so much disdain for our school system as there is right now. The comments on social media in regards to the mess this board has created is pathetic and laughable to the community. This school board is not listening to parents who are speaking at school board meetings week after week. Now, due to all the bad rhetoric rhetoric that has happened, it has turned into being unreasonably about race rather than qualifications, which is the issue the parents of this community have. There has not been one person that I have seen who has said she shouldn't be superintendent because of race, but there have been many who have said that is why she should be superintendent. What a double standard. If anyone should be ashamed of themselves, it's the people at the podium making the comments such as, it's not 1912. Comments and actions such as this is what's causing the division we have in this community. The next comment, number 6, comes from Joanna Mackey of Oviedo. To the members of the school board, I'm a doctoral candidate in public health with more than 10 years of experience studying health and safety in early learning environments. I'm writing to encourage the board to keep in place the clear CDC guidelines to prevent the spread of COVID-19, including universal mask wearing at schools. Although it is tempting to let down our guard as this pandemic stretches on and the vaccination rate among adults increases, please keep in mind that there is no vaccine for children yet. Behavioral prevention strategies are still the only protection for children as well as adults who are not yet vaccinated. Behavioral prevention strategies include the mask wearing, hand washing, and physical distancing that are currently in place. These individual behaviors protect everyone. Please continue to follow CDC guidelines and work with local health officials to determine when and how to start relaxing prevention behaviors when the time is right. Thank you, Joanne Mackey. The next and last comment comes from Alexa Brandolfino. Based on the most recent photos of Ms. Beeman on the SCPS Facebook page, one could safely assume that she is pro-choice for masks. After looking at these photos, it appears that the stance on mask is when, per our children's discretion, when it's impending on their joy-filled experiences, which is a simple way of excusing one's actions. If our new superintendent is in fact not pro-choice for masks, then I would ask that she conduct herself accordingly. Otherwise, our children should expect the same courtesy to use their discretion on whether or not they'd like to wear a mask. It's time to unmask our children. The science has proven that it is well beyond time for this. Furthermore, the comments on the Facebook post show that most parents are in agreement with this. Thank you, Alexa Brandolfino. That concludes public comment.
Thank you very much. Superintendent, do you have a recommendation on the consent agenda?
I do, Madam Chair. My recommendation is that the consent agenda be approved as presented.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Superintendent, do you have a recommendation on student discipline?
Yes, I do. My recommendation is that the School Board of Seminole County approve the student disciplinary recommendations from March 22nd, 2021.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Nothing, no unfinished business. Do you have any new business, Dr. Griffin?
I do not, and the superintendent's report is read-only.
Thank you. So board members, that brings us to board committee update. Member Krause?
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to send congratulations to the new chair of the Business Advisory Board, Drew Klass, and vice chair is Tina Kraft. We met last week, and basically they have a visioning sessions where they're working on 3 deeper dives to present to the board: mental health and self-care, education workforce skill set, and flexibility in the educational model. So I look forward to their presentation later this, probably over this summer, I would guess. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Pennock?
I just want to say thank you for including me in the Lyman High School principal process. I think with all the interviews, all the candidates that we saw, we have a good pipeline of principals for our future, and just want to say congratulations to Michael Hunter for his placement at Lyman High School. Last week was Lyman Week. We had a Lyman High School student forum. That was really well. We got a good feedback mixed on keep connect, don't keep connect. Glad to be face-to-face, didn't like SCPS, didn't like Seminole Connect. Overwhelmingly, these students were really back in the classroom and appreciative. And then this Friday, we have our final RFP presentations for the internal auditor. So we will move forward with a recommendation to negotiate a final contract, and that should come to you guys probably in the next month or so.
Member Calderon?
Just a quick update. With our last Seminole Chamber meeting, we have a new director of events, Nathaniel Arner, who's taken over. And a little earlier than he thought, Sean Mulsberger has now taken over as chairman. So those are the updates. They're ahead of schedule budgetary-wise and new member-wise, so everything's going well there.
Member Sanchez?
I have a coalition meeting on Monday, as well as a Zoom meeting next week, so I'll have updates on that shortly. Also, the legislative updates are all on the pages on the florida.gov site. Please feel free to contact your legislators. I'm going to say it over and over again. Please, we need some of the bills that are going through. Please look over and help us with them. Also, I want to thank Amanda Goggin. I went to her Lake Mary High School classroom last week. She has an ESE self-contained classroom. The students were wonderful. I saw some students with masks, some students without masks. If teachers are talking, they're 6 feet away, they can take their mask down. I'm going to say this every single time. If they're testing and they're 6 feet apart from their partner, then they can take their mask down. So please discuss it with the principals of your schools. Thank you.
Thank you. The only board that I serve on that met was the Foundation Board for Seminole County Public Schools. So I reported on the Employee of the Year gathering where they came through. I talked about the regional chambers tribute to Dr. Griffin and the books that were donated to the foundation, Tools for Seminole Schools, to honor him. I talked about Central Florida Public School Boards Coalition recognizing Dr. Griffin, Croom's Tech Fest, and the beam signing and raising at Casbury Elementary. And that's my report. And with no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.